All right. Wanted to hop on and start creating a little bit more uh, content for you guys. A big part of this is because I'm actually in the trenches. If you didn't know and sort of new to this channel or you're seeing this later, I've been working as a strength and conditioning coach for almost 30 years. Really, the idea of a strength and conditioning coach, I started to identify because I wanted to diversify and get away from that personal trainer label, which is just about potentially looking good. I wanted to add function into what I was doing with my clients. And so a lot of what I was doing was to try to help them participate in their sports. And if you didn't know, I've been traveling full time with Nomads with a Purpose. You can check out that channel, our adventure channel, and see some of our travels over the last 8 years. But little by little, I started working and broaching into a more digital um really digitally working with all my clients at this point. Actually, today I'm actually visiting one of my clients here in Salt Lake and really working on helping them in person. They have me revamp their workout routine, revamp their gym, revamp their pantry, and revamp their lives. And so I want to jump on and really talk a little bit about knees. And knees are one of those things that I've been working on with people for almost 30 years. And knee pain can be super frustrating, whether you're surfing, doing jujitsu, skiing, in any of your sports. But a lot of it comes down to having a better understanding of the system. Now, if you are listening to this, take a few notes. There's a ton of information out there, but what I try myself is thrive on is really being able to convey the information and creating some systemization for you to be able to deal with whatever it is you're going on. And I always feel like you don't really have a grasp of the information unless you could explain it to a kindergartner. You don't really have a grasp of the information. So I like to keep things simple and give you some actual simple steps that you can use to help your knee. The first thing is not doing anything is never really a good choice. Just sitting around is really rarely a good choice. As a matter of fact, for some period of time, I had an opportunity to work with offensive coordinator and his family for the Chargers a while back, and I always talked a little bit with him about how it could impact how do they really rehab. And he says, you know what, if my guy one of my guys ends up in surgery, they wake up, they're already mobilizing their knee. So if they had an ACL repair, they're waking up, they're not even out of recovery and they're already moving it. There's a reason movement is absolutely critical, guys. So if you have to take time off from your actual sport, doing nothing is rarely a good choice. Now, if you're in acute trauma, it happened in that moment, you're throwing ice, you're decreasing inflammation. Inflammatory process can be really challenging. So, the knee does what the hip tells it to do. That's the first thing. And write that one down, guys. I have had an opportunity of working from ages from like 3 to 90, right? I've owned and operated a gymnastics facility, and what I would do is watch children move and figure out, oh, this person's going to predispose. There's a couple things that can predispose you to injury. Genu recurvatum, where the knees tend to go backwards. Knock kneeing, the knees going in, or a valgus force. Now, I see this a lot with young ladies when I was teaching gymnastics. You could tell when they jumped, their knees would knock in. Now, naturally, as they start to get prepubescent, the Q angle on the hips, that's that natural more bowl shape in the hips, which we love as guys, really starts to predispose an imbalance of structure in female athletes. This is why there's been a lot of studies associated with ACLs amongst Division I female athletes. You are more likely to rupture ACL if you're a ground-based athlete, female, Division I, because of the intensity. And that information has really told us a lot about biomechanics, guys. So first things first, the hip is going to do what the knee tells you. So if you have weak hips or tight hips, both are going to predispose you for hypermobility in the knees or a disproportionate amount of use and balance in the inner and outer knee. So the inner and outer knee starts to develop weakness. That's your VMO, the vastus medialis, and the outer part, the vastus lateralis, which is naturally going to be stronger, is going to want to pull and push that knee inward. So we have a valgus force. The knees are going to want to knock in, and that's going to predispose you to medial knee pain and also predispose you to some ACL ruptures as well. So the key ingredient here is classic figure four stretches, classic hip openers like a pigeon pose, as well as box pigeon, which I use quite often to help you do your those stretches, keep mobility. So if you sit on the floor, legs crossed, and your knees are pointing straight up, and you're a dude or even a female, your knees don't sit out to the side. That's a massive lipo. You need to work on your mobility there to start opening up. Find a position that you can hold for 2 to 5 minutes, 2 to 3 times a day to start to open up that knee mobility. This is where knees over toes guy is really on the right track because he scales everything. If it's too intense, find a happy medium that you can hold. Okay. Now, the second thing is that if you have weak glutes, it's going to predispose you to more knees because you're going to be, we say quad dominance, weak hip. The hips should really be strong as well. So, this is where your strength training comes in. Once you have mobility, work on strengthening your hips. A classic bent leg bridge evaluation, which I do with a lot of people, is I start to have them move so that I can see if their hips are firing. If you do a bent leg bridge and you only feel hammies and your glutes are not firing, you have some level of glute inhibition, right? So that means your glutes aren't firing. So start to work your progression through squats, lunges, both single leg Bulgarian squats, kettlebell swings. Those should be your marquee movements. Start off light, do those 2 to 3 times a day for high repetitions to start getting the technique down before you start throwing a ton of resistance. If you do those movements and you are not getting sore, there's a good chance you are not doing it right, especially if you're already evaluated bent leg bridge and your hamstrings are not firing, or I'm sorry, your glutes are not firing, your hamstrings are dominating the motion. So that's step two. Now, step three is to start evaluating, is to start strengthening that VMO. Now, the VMO can fire at the last part of extension and also at the bottom part. So a nice deep squat will fire that VMO, getting deep into the hole, as well as the last 15 degrees of extension, like a reverse step down. Again, knee to over toes guys really made a lot of these movements popular. A basic step down or a basic step up with control to fire that VMO, and then evaluate your movement. Watch yourself move. That's where phones are quite amazing. If you start to see those knees wanting to come inward, it's not a function of just doing more leg work. We need to understand the balance that is the knee to rehab the knee, guys. The balance that is the knee to rehab the knee. The knee does what the hip tells it to do. So start with the hip, experiment there, work your mobility, then start to integrate the right stretching so that you can see results and start to bring. If you have any questions, please send me an email or leave them here in the comments. I love really helping people. It's actually quite simple for me to take a look, do one session with you, and I promise you'll be better. Thanks a lot.